So let us start with the Shanti Mantra. This is on page 158 of this book, The Universal Prayers, top of page 158. This shloka is from the Vishwasara Tantra, the prayer to the Divine Mother. So let us chant. Om Anathasya Deenasya Krishnaturasya Bhayartasya Bhitasya Baddhasya Janto Tamekagatiriddevi Nistaradhatri Namaste Jagattarini Trahi Durge Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O Divine Mother, the remover of the miseries of all devotees, you are the savior of the poor and the helpless. You are the protector of those oppressed by desire and stricken with fear. You are the refuge of the afflicted and the bound. You are, O Mother, the goal and the giver of emancipation. You are the savior of the universe. Please do protect us all. To you, O bow down. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace be within us all. Peace and harmony amongst all beings. And peace be everywhere in nature. We study now shloka number 30 in chapter 6. This is one of the very important shlokas, and the theme here, the subject of this shloka and the previous one also, 29, is we as spiritual seekers, we are all interested in knowing God. We don't have a clear idea of what God is now, and we want to know, we want to experience God's presence within us and everywhere. That is our goal. So what we should do, we should practice seeing the presence of God in all and everything. Because, as Swami Turiyananda said once, what we visualize and imagine today will become our experience tomorrow. Whatever we imagine and visualize repeatedly and powerfully, that will become the reality, that will become our experience. So if we visualize the presence of God in everyone, everything, including people, animals, plants, inanimate objects, and nature, then we will be able to see the presence of God in all these things. This is not something new. Innumerable sages have experienced it. We are not the first ones. So we have that testimony. We have that proof. This is something that has been proved over and over again by innumerable saints. They all have succeeded in seeing God in all and everything. You can see in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna often says he sees God in everyone, including bad people, women, and other things also. Two instances I will give. Many instances are there in Sri Ramakrishna's life. How he sees God even in the unlikely people. In one day, there was a janitor woman. You know, in India, janitor women are not accepted as part of the mainstream society. Which is, we can't debate on it now, but it is like it was there more in Sri Ramakrishna's time. So she was carrying on her head a basket containing impure things. That was her job in Dakshineshwar. And he saw her from a distance, maybe I don't know how much distance, a few feet maybe. Immediately she saw her, the presence of the Divine Mother. And immediately he prostrated full length in front of her. And he said, "Oh, Divine Mother, you have assumed this form," like this one. So another time, in the same area, there was a prostitute. I forget her name. I used to know her name. And she was walking. And when Sri Ramakrishna saw her, he immediately recognized the presence of Divine Mother in her and prostrated in front of her. This happened many times. So why I'm mentioning the instances is verse number 30 says that in this verse number 30, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is giving us a very important instruction that we should all follow every day, all the time. We should make it a point to practice this. This is something that we have to practice. He says, he or she who sees me in all and all in me, to him or her, I am never lost. I am always in contact with such a person is always in continuous communion with the divine, with God. So let us chant verse number 30. The same theme was in verse number 29 also. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Yah mam sarvatra pashyati. Sarvatra means everywhere, in everything. He who sees me in all and everything. Sarvam cha mai pashyati. Sees all and everything in God. Everything is in God, God is in everything. That means God and everything is only one thing. If there are two different things, then that is not the truth. God and everything, whole universe is only one thing. Either we see as universe of name and form, good and bad, or we see it as God. Jnanis see everything as Brahman. Devotees see everything as God, as their chosen ideal. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell someone that Sri Rama himself has become all the men and Sri Sita has become all the women. So that is the truth. The second line of shloka number 30, Tasya aham na pranashyami. Pranasya means destruction, going out of existence. So I am never go out of existence to such a person who sees me in all, Bhagavan is saying. Because that person is constantly seeing the presence of God. How can God be away, absent from such a person's view? Not possible. Such a person who practices seeing the presence of God in all and everything, such a person is always in continuous, unbroken communion, contact with the divine. And last part is Sachame na pranashyati. Same thing from the other side. In the commentary, Shankaracharya says, let me see, verse number 30. Tasya cha mama cha atmaikatvat. For such a, Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, for such a person, between him and me, there is no difference. We both are same. This came earlier also. In the seventh, no, we are not gone there. For such a person, there is no difference. between me and God. They all enjoy unity, union. So this is something that we have to practice, but carefully. Because the truth is that God is present in everyone and everything, including animals, inanimate objects, nature. That is true. In river also God is present, in the well also God is present, in the tiger also God is present. But when putting this into practice, we have to exercise care. You have to be careful. If you see a wicked person, we should not get close to that person thinking God is in that person. The truth is God is in that person. That is the absolute truth. But that person is not aware of God's presence in him or her. Such person may not even believe in the existence of God. So that won't work. So mentally you recognize God's presence in that person, but no need to get close to the person. If you tell that person God is present in you, that won't work. They will make fun of us. They will say, what God are you talking about? So that won't work. We don't have to do that one. In our mind, we see God's presence, but stay away from wicked people, from dangerous animals and dangerous situations. So we have to exercise care. Remember Sri Ramakrishna's parable of the wild elephant. The Gurukulam boy was standing in the way of the wild elephant in the forest when he was gathering firewood. But the wild elephant does not know anything about God. So you should stay away from its path for your own safety. So that is how it has to be practiced. This idea will come again. It has come before also. This is something that we have to practice mostly mentally. No need to say anything. When you see somebody, you remember God is present in this person. So deal with that person as if you are dealing with God. With respect, gentleness, compassion, and love, as far as practical situations permit. We have to be careful in applying these things in practice in our lives. So if there is some possibility of conflict or something, then there is no need to say anything. Mentally say, God is present in you, but it won't work. You're not ready yet. There's no need to do or say anything. So that's how we have to put this idea into practice. What happens if we practice this for a long time is we begin to experience our oneness with the divine. That's what Shankara says in the commentary. Then the distinction between the devotee and God will gradually diminish and they merge into one. Only God remains. Jnani tu atmaiva me matam. That will come in the next chapter. Chapter number 7 will come to that verse where Sri Krishna declares unequivocally that the devotee and God are one and the same. The distinction will disappear at the highest level. No distinction is there. I am separate from God. That is good. That's where we are now. But if you keep on practicing this one, seeing the presence of God in oneself and in all other things and everybody, we will experience oneness with the divine. That is the shloka number 30. 31 also same thing. Shloka 31. सर्वभूतस्थितं यो मां भजत्येकत्वमास्थितः सर्वथा वर्तमानोऽपि स योगी मयि वर्तते. Same theme. Conforming to unity. Ekatvam astita. Unity means seeing everything as one, united in God. Unity. Everything is one, united in God. Sarvabhuta sthitam mam yaha bhajati. Bhajati means praise to, worships. One who worships me, mam bhajati. One who worships me, Bhagavan is speaking. Whom are we worshipping? Sarvabhuta sthitam mam. The Lord who is present in all the beings, not only in the images in the temple and the puja room, but in everything God is present. This is the basis. I'll make a little digression. This is the basis by Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda said the highest kind of worship is to serve the living beings. There are many different kinds of worship. Traditionally, I'm making a little digression on how to practice the seeing presence of God in all. There are 4 kinds of worship traditionally, according to tradition. First is Pratima Puja. Pratima Puja. Pratima means an image. The image can be made of any material, of gold or silver or clay, or it can be any kind of representation, like a photograph or a painting or an image, whatever, representing God. That is one kind of worship. Ritualistic worship, offering various things, sandal paste, flowers, incense, lamp and food, and chanting mantras, hymns. That is one kind of worship, traditional ritualistic worship. That is good. Second kind of worship is Japa Stotradi Madhyama. Japa Stotra. Japa, we are familiar, repeating God's name or mantra. That is kind of worship, effective kind of worship, very effective. Japa itself can independently serve as a total, complete spiritual practice. If you do japa, you need not do anything else. A lot of japa has to be done. Holy Mother said 15 to 20,000 every day. Japa. Stotra means chanting hymns in praise of God, describing glory of God. Hymns are of many different kinds. There are Vedic hymns in the Vedas, many hymns are there, like the Purusha Suktam, Narayana Suktam, Devi Suktam, Rudram, Chamakam, all those are Vedic hymns. Numerous hymns are there in the Vedas. They have to be chanted properly under with some training under proper guidance. Vedic chanting is not to be done casually. Then there are hymns in the Puranas. There are hymns in the Mahabharata and Ramayana epics. And there are hymns composed by numerous saints in all parts of India on all different languages in different centuries. So if you add up all these things, innumerable number of hymns are there. I shall mention 2-3 very common hymns. Most of you recognize that one. Hanuman Chalisa, for example. Hymn does not have to be only in Sanskrit, can be in any language. Most people are familiar with Hanuman Chalisa. It's a very beautiful hymn composed in Awadhi language, local language by Tulsidas ji. Chanting it purifies the mind. Chanting any of these hymns purifies the mind, increases devotion. And chanting is a very powerful method of purifying the mind. So that is Japa Stotra, doing Japa or chanting different names, Sahasranama. Vishnu Sahasranama is very common, 1,000 names of Vishnu. And there are shorter lists, 1,108 names, Vishnu Ashtottara Shatnama, like this for all deities. The Rama Sahasranama, Krishna Sahasranama, Ganesha Sahasranama, Shiva Sahasranama, Durga Sahasranama. For all deities, there are 1,000 names, lists are there. Those are chanted by devotees in different parts of India. Vishnu Sahasranama is the most common one. Lilita Sahasranama also. So that is second kind of worship. First kind of worship is ritualistic worship, Pratima Puja. Second kind of worship is Japa Stotra. Third kind of worship is Manasi Puja, meditation, mental worship. It's called Lila Dhyana. Visualizing all worship mentally. You don't need any paraphernalia, you don't need any flowers, you don't need any sandal paste, anything. You sit down, close your eyes, and do the whole worship in your mind. Visualize the whole, every step in your mind of worship. Japa Stotradi Madhyama Uttama Manasi Puja. Now, fourth kind of worship is there. That is Soham Puja Uttama. Soham means in the first three kinds of worship, separation between devotee and God is there. I'm a devotee, I'm worshipping God who is separate from me. That separation is there. But in the fourth kind of worship, that separation goes away. One merges into the worshipped and says, I am Brahman, I am Brahmasmi. Soham puja. That is not advisable, not possible for majority of people. It is there for a small number of people can do it. Now these are the four kinds of traditional worship. What Swami Vivekananda said was what you are going to study in this verse number 31. He said, better than all these four kinds of worship, better than ritualistic worship, better than Japa Stotra, better than Manasi Puja, better than Soham Puja, the highest kind of worship is to serve the living beings who are in need of service. He wrote a poem, The Living God. There he says, what God are you worshipping? Image in the temple, the stone image in the temple, the marble image or the photo. Give up that. Worship the living God next to you. The poor person who is waiting for food, the sick person who is waiting for medical care, the homeless person who is waiting for help. That is the living God. See God in them and worship them by serving whatever, giving them whatever they need. That is the highest kind of worship, higher than only four kinds of worship. This is what Swamiji wrote. If you want to see where he wrote this one, there is a poem that he wrote. The poem is called The Living God. The Living God. That's the title of the poem. There in very strong language, Swamiji says, what kind of worship are you doing? Offering fruits and flowers and pouring milk and ghee and on the Shivalinga, Abhishekam, all these things, chanting Vedic mantras. Give that up. Go to the person who is in need of help. It can be an animal, it can be a plant, it can be a man, or a poor woman, sick woman. Do what is needed to help that person. That is the highest kind of worship. Because you see the divine living presence of God in that person. Giving up forgetting the living presence of God in the suffering person, whatever kind of are you going to do? He asks. So that is what this verse number 31 says. Verse number 31 says, Yaha mam sarvabhota sthitam bhajati. He who worships me present in all the beings. That is the real kind of worship. Living presence of God, we have to worship. That is the most effective kind of worship. Produces immediate result, purity of mind, devotion. Sarvata vartamanopi. No matter in what condition such a person lives, he may be living in a tent, he may be living in a luxurious home, or he may be living in under the tree, wherever such a person, under whatever condition such a person, it does not matter. External conditions of living do not matter. What that person does, if such a person see the divine presence in all, he is doing the highest kind of worship. Sarvata vartamanopi, no matter how such a person lives under what conditions, sahayogi mayi vartate, that person lives in me, he becomes one with me. So what is the highest kind of worship? How to translate this into action that we can do? Verse number 31. That should be our focus. How we can put this into practice in our lives. So we have to do two things. Every time you see somebody, it may be your family member, it can be somebody, a stranger, it can be somebody whom you meet in a Vedanta society, somebody you meet in a supermarket. Every time you meet somebody, no need to say anything. It's all internal, mental. Mentally remember that in that person, God is present, same as in you. Only one God present in you and in that person. That act of recollection, practice of recollection, practice the presence of God. You have heard that from Brother Lawrence. That is how we have to put into practice. And then do what is necessary, what is appropriate, what is possible. Everybody cannot do social service and go to hospitals and serve the patient. That's very difficult, especially these days. So in whatever way you can, it may be a very small way. It doesn't have to be in a grand, big way. In small, small ways, we can see the presence of God and serve everyone to the extent possible, to the extent feasible, under the practical situation in which we live. So that is the application. Sarvabhuta sthitam mam yaha bhajati. He who worships me, who is present in all the beings, sahayogi, regardless of how he lives, savata vartamanoti, mai vartate, he lives in me, he becomes one with me. That is the practical aspect of seeing the presence of God in all. I'm sure you have all heard about Brother Lawrence's story, seeing, practicing the presence of God. That's what we have to do. Doing all our work as worship of the Lord. Supposing somebody comes to your house and you make a cup of tea and give to that person. It's a common thing, right? It's a courtesy. So that act of giving a cup of tea to the visiting person is an act of worship. Recognize God's presence in that person who has come to your home, and then you offer whatever is appropriate, and then that is the way you worship God. Recognize the divine presence. No need to say anything. If they agree with you, if they say anything, you are also studying Gita, you can discuss all these things with them freely. But if they don't believe in these things, you don't have to say anything. You just do your practice. So that is verse number 31. Then verse number 32 is a key verse. Before I chant that verse 32, I shall mention this, that in all the religions, including Hinduism, all branches of Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and other Zoroastrianism, other religions, there's one thing that is common. Lot of differences, but one thing that is common. And that one thing is called the golden rule. You can Google and see the golden rule. You will see a lot of references. The golden rule. What is the golden rule? Simply put, the golden rule is this. In plain language, golden rule is treat all others as you would like to be treated by others. In plain language. That is what is explained in verse number 32 in the Gita. It's in the Gita. The golden rule. All religions have this one. The language is different. The way they express it different, but golden rule is there in every religion. So that is verse number 32. We have to treat everyone in the same way that we would like to be treated by others. If I want to be shown respect by others, I should show respect to others. If I want to be loved by others, I should love others. Like that. So let me chant verse number 32. The golden rule. These are all very interesting, important verses which can be put into practice. Atmaupam yena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi mayi vartate. Common theme is when you practice these things, seeing the God, presence of God in all, we become one with the experience, one with the divine. Sayogi mayi vartate. That came in the previous verse also. Sayogi paramo mataha. So let us go back to verse 32. Atmopamyena sarvatra. Atmopamya means just as I like to be treated. Upama means comparison. Upama means comparison. Comparing myself with others in regard to pain and pleasure. Sukham va yadiva dukkham. That means if something causes me pain, supposing somebody says a harsh word to me and that hurts me, right? It causes me pain. Now I should apply the same thing to other people. If I say a harsh word to somebody else, that will hurt that person too. The same way as it hurts me, it hurts the other person too. Atmaupamyena sukham va yadi va dukkham. If something causes me sukha, good feeling, pleasure, same thing will happen to other people. If I feel good when somebody talks nicely to me, then I should do the same thing to others. I should talk nicely to other people to make that person feel good. Whatever makes me feel good makes other person also feel good. Whatever makes me feel bad causes me pain, causes pain to other people too. I should recognize that and act accordingly. So, in short, to summarize, verse number 32, we have to treat all and everything, not only people, animals, plants, inanimate objects too. They also have feeling. We have to treat all and everything in the same way in which we want to be treated. That is the golden rule. That's the verse number 32. It's a very interesting verse, which has to be put into practice. All these things have to be put into practice on a daily basis. That's when we begin to feel the change in our life, in our inner life. So let me chant again, verse number 32. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. O Arjuna, he who sees alike pleasure or pain in all beings on the analogy of his own self, he is deemed the supreme yogi, parama yogi. Supreme yogi is one who treats everyone with empathy, compassion, gentleness, and love and respect, as one would like to be treated by others. So that has to be something, that is something to be put into practice on a daily basis. Again, there is no need to say anything, discuss, unless that person is interested. Many people don't believe in these things, so no need to say. Treat them nicely and just leave it like that. It's all mostly inward spiritual practice. Sri Ramakrishna, at one stage, would actually feel the pain that other people would feel. One day he was standing near the river in Dakshineshwar. On the river, a boat was going. The two boatmen were fighting with each other. One of the boatmen gave a big blow on the back of the second boat person. The second boat person cried with sharp pain. And immediately Sri Ramakrishna felt the pain here on his back, as if he was hit by the boatman. There was no difference between him and the other person, same divinity. What happens there happens here. He actually felt like that one. But always that didn't happen, because then it's difficult for him to live. It takes on everybody's pain. So that is the truth. We are all one spiritually. At the physical level, we are different. Bodies are different, minds are different. But if you go deeper into our personality, when we consider ourselves as a spirit, we are all one. Only one self, one Atman, one God, present in all the beings, appearing as many different people. Everybody is different. So that is the golden rule, 32. Now comes the most important question. If there is one question that is that comes to all our minds, that is, Arjuna is going to ask that question in 33, 34. You will recognize that one. There are two shlokas, 33, 34, containing one question. Arjuna asked that question. You will recognize the question because you know you have that question. Every one of us has that question. So let me chant 33 and 34 both. Arjuna Uvacha योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तः साम्येन मधुसूदन एतस्याहं न पश्यामि चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम् चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण प्रमाथि बलवदृढम् तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये वायोरिव सुदुष्करम्. The question is, everybody has the same question. O Krishna, Arjuna asks, of this yoga that Sri Krishna was describing, see God in everyone, everyone is same spiritually, treat everyone as you would like to be treated. All these things he was saying. And before that, he was talking about meditation also, verse number 26. O Arjuna, of this yoga explained by you as consisting of sameness, samatvam, samya, samatvam. Everybody is same at the deepest level, same God in all. Sameness. I do not see firm certitude, the mind being fickle. Etasyam napashyami chanchalatvat sthitim stiram. Mind is chanchala. Chanchala means very fickle. Does not stay on one topic for any length of time. Keeps on going from different topic to topic to topic. Everybody is experienced, we know that one. Because of the fickleness, unsteadiness of the mind, how can you practice this one? The verse number 34 clarifies the question more. Chanchalam mi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Krishna, manaha chanchalam, the mind is fickle. We don't have to be told that we all know from our experience. Mind is always moving from topic to topic, hard to concentrate on one topic. Chanchalami mana Krishna. Pramati. Pramati means turbulent. Turbulent means like being churned. Manthanam means churning. The mind is always being churned by different topics, pulled in different directions. Pramati, turbulent mind. Balavadradam, it is strong and obstinate. Doesn't listen to our advice to stay on one topic. Tasya means of the mind, nigraham manye. Nigraham, control of the mind, I think, I understand. Manye means I understand the control of the mind is as difficult as controlling the wind. Vayu iva sudushkaram. Vayu means wind. To control the mind and make it dwell on one topic for any length of time is as difficult as it is to control the wind, the currents of the wind. It comes with great force. Whatever is in its path, it will destroy. Mind is like that, turbulent and very firm and does not listen to our request to stay on one topic. How to control the mind? That is the question. So Arjuna's question in 33, 34 is, mind is difficult to control because of its unsteady nature. How to control the mind? That is the most important question. You all have the same question. Now let us see what reply Bhagavan Sri Krishna gives, starting from verse number 35. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Asamshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena ta Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Grihyate. Answer is known already, but we have to study in detail and try to practice. Verse number 35, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Bhagavan Sri Krishna replies, Mahabaho or Arjuna, or Sri Krishna addresses Arjuna as a Mahabaho. Bahu means the arm. Mahabahu means one has big, long, powerful arms. For a Kshatriya, it is necessary to have a very good, strong, powerful physique. So Arjuna was like that. Mahabhahu was called. Asamshayam, undoubtedly. Samshaya means doubt. Asamshaya means undoubtedly. Manaha, the mind. Durnigraham, difficult to control. Nigraha means control. Difficult to control the mind. That is true. Sri Krishna agrees. Sri Krishna does not dismiss the question, oh, you can control the mind. No, he says it. First of all, Sri Krishna acknowledges, concedes that it is difficult to control the mind. He does not say it is easy. He says, yes, it is difficult, undoubtedly difficult to control the mind, O Arjuna, because it is chalam. Chalam means it's moving, constantly moving from topic to topic. So Sri Krishna says, undoubtedly, O Arjuna, the mind is difficult to control and it is unsteady, fickle, chanchalam. However, you see the word tu in the second line, second word. Tu means however. When you see the word tu, that means something opposite is being said. But or however, grihyate, mind can be controlled. Last word in the second line, grihyate, it can be controlled. Not easy, but it can be done. Doable. How? Two things. You have to remember these two things. How to control the mind. Solution is given here in this verse. One is abhyasena, by constant practice. Abhyasa means constant practice. Not 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, 2 week, but all life. Every day. Constantly you have to practice concentration, meditation. That you already have seen. I will tell you where Sri Krishna has given how to do abhyasa. Abhyasena to Kaunteya or Arjuna, Kunti's son Kaunteya, Vairagyena, practicing of Vairagya, detachment, non-attachment. Two things have to be done to practice concentration, to achieve concentration of mind. Abhyasa, Vairagya. How to do abhyasa? That you already know. Remember, Sri Krishna described how to do abhyasa in the same chapter earlier. Remember the shloka, abhyasa? Shloka number 26. That is how to do abhyasa. He is already given the solution. How to practice abhyasa was given in chapter 6, verse 26. There, Bhagavan Sri Krishna had said, Yato yato nischarati manaschanchalamastiram tatastato niyam yetad atmanyeva vasham nayet. 626. As the mind goes away in different directions, as many times as it goes away from the topic of meditation, from all those digressions, gently, patiently, repeatedly bring it back and make it dwell on the self. Yata yataha, from wherever, manaha chanchalam nischarati, mind goes away. Nischarati means goes in different directions, digressions. Tatastataha, from all those digressions, supposing you are meditating on God and the mind goes to food, bring it back from food to God. Tatastataha, from all those digressions, niyamya, controlling it, atmani eva vasham nayet, make it dwell, bring it under control, make it dwell on the Atman. Atman or your chosen ideal on whom you are meditating. That is abhyasa, 626. That is one thing we have to do. There is no shortcut. Every day we have to sit down for a meditation at least twice a day and practice abhyasa. The mind goes away in whatever direction, bring it back, make it dwell on the object of meditation. How many times? As many times as it goes away. That's one method, one measure we have to do. There's no way around it. We have to do that one. Second thing is vairagyena. Vairagya means inquiring why the mind has gone there. Why the mind goes away from God on whom I am meditating. Why does it go leaving God and to similar topic, something that happened 20 years ago or yesterday, or something may happen tomorrow. Mind goes there. Why it goes? You have to inquire. Vairagya. The mind goes away from God to all other unwanted topics at the time of meditation because we have allowed the mind to think about those topics before with interest. I have shown interest in those topics before. Supposing I am meditating evening, our evening meditation here is 7 to 8 every evening. 6:30 to 7 we sing Arati, 7 to 8 we meditate. And after 8 o'clock we all do group reading, 15-20, then we have dinner. So when I'm sitting for meditation at 7 o'clock, my mind goes to the dinner, what I am going to have for dinner. Why my mind goes to dinner, leaving God? Because my mind I've allowed the mind to think about food with much interest before. I've allowed the mind to think about food. It is interesting. Food is more interesting than God in meditation. So that is my own problem that I created. So what I should do, antidote to this digression is, I should practice detachment, opposite of attachment. I should say, food is not more important than God. It is something that food what chance may bring. Swami Vivekananda said in the Song of Sannyasi, no big fuss about food. Whatever comes, eat it and be done with it. No big discussion about it. So Vairagya. Vairagya means you have to practice non-attachment. We have to lessen our interest in all those things. How to practice Vairagya? Two things you have to keep in mind. One thing is we have to weigh. Supposing I'm thinking about God, mind goes to something else. Dress or food or what somebody said yesterday or last year. Now I should ask myself, which is more important? Is God more important or is that what that person said more important? You see, God is more important. I should bring back my mind to God. That is not worth thinking about. Something somebody said something had happened. Leave it behind. Why should waste present time on that one? So we have to compare which is better, the topic that mind is dwelling on now or the topic on which mind is supposed to dwell, God. Which is better? Definitely God is better. That's the goal of life. So other topic is not interesting. Maybe later I can think about it if necessary. So how this Vairagya was practiced by Nachiketa. I always think about Nachiketa when I come to this shloka. Nachiketa story comes in the Katha Upanishad. Most of you know that one. Nachiketa asked Yama, the god of death, for self-knowledge. What happens after death? Does something survive? Something called Atman, or is the body, the whole thing and everything goes away? What is the truth? Yama didn't want to answer the question for maybe two reasons. One reason was Nachiketa was a young boy, 8-9 years old boy. And Yama was surprised that his boy is asking such a profound question. Boys of that age are not interested in what happens after death. They are interested in their own toys and whatever. But this boy is asking the most profound question. So Yama was wondering, is he really serious about it? Or is he asking to impress me? And second thing is, if the answer is given, is he capable of understanding it? Does he have the background to understand the answer to that question about the Atman that survives after body dies? So Yama says, why do you worry about death right now? You are still very young. I'll give you many other things instead of this question. Yama says, I'll give you a very large kingdom. I'll make you a king. I'll give you a very large kingdom and a queen and horses and chariots and elephants and music and dance and money and a long life to enjoy all these things. Please take all those things and don't worry about what happens after death. You're still too young. I'll give you a long life. Any ordinary person would have taken those things. That's what people want, enjoyment, pleasure. But Nachiketa was different. He says to Yama, oh Lord, all those things I don't want. Three things Nachiketa says in the Kathopanishad. Nachiketa says, Shobhava Martyasya Yadantakaita. We are discussing Vairagya in verse number 35, context. O Antaka, Yama, Shobhava, all these things that you are offering, namely kingdom and long life and queen and chariot and music and dance, they are all temporary. Tomorrow, today they are there, tomorrow they are not there. I'm not interested. Second thing Nachiketa says, second reason why he doesn't want them is, Sarve Indriyanam Jarayanti Tejaha. All the sensory pleasures, they will satisfy the senses only for a short time. After some time, the sense organs lose their ability to enjoy sense objects. This we know from experience. When we are young and strong, in our 20s and 30s, we can eat any kind of food, any amount of food. Don't have to worry about calories or sugar or anything. But after some years, then the very same food which gave us so much pleasure, it becomes prohibited. You have to reject all that. You can't take those food. The body, sense organs lose their ability to enjoy sense objects as we advance in age. Sarve Indriyanam Jarayanti. The boy knew these things. Young boy, but he knew, he had this wisdom. He said, these pleasures give only happiness for a short time. After some time, they cease to give pleasure because the sense organs lose their ability, acuity to enjoy the pleasures which they enjoyed once. Then the third thing that he says is that all these things are of no use to me. You give to those who are seeking Tavai Vyavahas Tavan Nritya Gite. All this Nritya, Gita, dance and music, Vaha means chariot and everything. I have no interest in them. Give them to those who are seeking. I want only self-knowledge. He insisted. That is Vairagya. When all those things were offered, which people hanker, these people, what majority people want, all these things, pleasures, money, wealth, physical enjoyment, food and dress and power and position. This is what people want. But that's not what we should ask. We should ask for self-knowledge. We should ask for devotion. That is Vairagya. Nachiketa shows the way which to prefer. Whether we should prefer something which gives pleasure, or we should prefer something which shows us the way to liberation, self-knowledge or devotion. That is how we have to make the choice between Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas means the ultimate good, liberation from the cycle of birth and death, and all suffering totally, completely, permanently ceases. Don't want any suffering of any type. Liberation from suffering, limitation, rebirth, etc. Do you want that? Or do you want prayer, something that gives immediate pleasure? So this comparison was made in the previous chapter. You may remember when verse chapter 5, where the same topic came, how to practice Vairagya, which to prefer. The preferable liberation, freedom from suffering for all time to come, God realization. Do we want that? Or do you want temporary pleasure? Immediately satisfy the senses. Which do we want? Chapter 5, verse 22. Just come before. Just make a note of that one. Chapter 5, verse 22, where Sri Krishna had already said these things. There he says, Ye hi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayo naya evate adyantavantah kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha. Buddha means a planet. Buddha also means a wise person, buddhiman, one who has thinking power, intellectual power. Such a person, teshu bhogeshu naramate. does not take any delight in enjoying the sensory pleasures. Samsparshaja bhoga, 522. Samsparshaja bhoga means pleasure that comes by contact with sense objects. All kind of pleasures is samsparshaja bhoga. You imagine any kind of happiness that people ordinarily experience, it comes in the contact with the sense object. The sense object can be another person. If you contact another person physically, that gives pleasure sometimes. Contact with all sense objects, food, with a dress, with car, with power, with money, these are all sense objects. That pleasure which comes with the contact, from the contact with sense objects is not real happiness at all. Dukkha yonaya evate, 522. Eventually they cause only dukkha. Because when they leave, temporarily they give pleasure. When they leave, which will happen, separation will come sooner or later. We become old, we can't enjoy, or something happens. When they leave, only dukkha will come. Very short-lived pleasure. Therefore, a wise person does not seek them. What we should seek instead? Liberation, freedom from suffering, freedom from the cycle of birth and death. That is Vairagya. So coming back to verse number 35, verse number 35, Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena cha kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. O Arjuna, Bhagavan says, it is undoubtedly very difficult to control the mind because it is unsteady, chalam. However, it can be controlled, grihyate, by abhyasa vairagya. Abhyasa means chapter 6, verse 26, repeatedly bringing the mind back to the object of meditation, abhyasa. Vairagya means discerning, discriminating between what is preferable, long-term freedom from suffering, liberation, pure devotion, self-knowledge. Do we want that? Or do we want short-term satisfaction of pleasures, which will only go away after a very short time? Short-lived, adhyantavanta, it is beginning and an end. Do we want this one or do we want that one? That inquiry has to be done constantly. And we should learn to prefer the higher goal, nishreyasa, prayers. Shreyas. So in the Kata Upanishad, Yama says, two things are there available to people: Shreyas, prayers. Prayers means immediate pleasure, property, money, family, children, grandchildren, wife, husband, power, these things. Shreyas means ultimate good, liberation, God realization, becoming one with the divine, and realizing our infinite divine nature, Satchidananda nature. Which do we prefer? That inquiry is called Vairagya. That's how to do practice Vairagya. It has to be an ongoing process, not a one-time thing. Both Abhyasa and Vairagya have to be ongoing, continuous practices. So we'll stop here. We have a couple of minutes if you want to ask any questions.
Swamiji, you mentioned the Lawrence story a couple of times. What is that story, Swamiji? That's the first question. And second question is, at the end of life, how do we know that we achieved whatever we were sent for? Because recently when Mama turned 80 and he was asking in Facebook, so I was wondering, and that question came to me, how do we know that we did whatever we were supposed to be, we were sent to this world to do?
What was the first question?
You keep referring to some Lawrence story. What is this Lawrence story?
Brother Lawrence. Yeah, the Lawrence story. It takes a little time. And now this, I will tell you next time, definitely. It is how you practiced constant presence of God. Constantly how you practice the presence of God. He did not write any book. He was a monk in a Christian Carmelite monastery in France. And then he practiced every time, all the time, the presence of God while doing work. He was working in the monastery kitchen and cooking and cleaning. This was in 16th, 17th century. There was no electricity, no water, nothing. He had to work very hard, and he was injured one leg. Anyway, he struggled, but during that hard work, constantly prayed to God, constantly did everything as required in the Gita as offering to God, as worship of God. So that is Brother Lawrence's story, and we will come back to it some next time.
Swami, there's a book, very small book. On
Yeah,
Brother
practice
Lawrence.
the presence of God.
Yes, very small book. It's very interesting to read if you can get one.
The book is called Practice of the Presence of God.
Yeah, the practice of.
Practice of the Presence of God is the name of the book. It contains 16 letters he wrote.
Yeah.
He didn't write the book. He wrote some letters and they were posthumously collected and published after he passed away.
Very interesting book, small book, but very interesting letters. So it's a very nice book.
Yeah, this book contains 16 letters written by him.
Yes.
The second question was, how do we know that what was the second question?
How do we know that we lived a successful life and we did whatever God sent us to do in this world? The reason I ask is one Mama recently turned 80 and he was asking, I hope I accomplished whatever I was here. Then the thought came to me, how do we know, why we came to this world and what we're supposed to do? Or success is not career, I'm saying for whatever we were sent, were we successful in doing whatever we were sent for?
How do we know how we have lived? We live from day to day, and if you remember the presence of God in all and everything, do some prayer every day, some kind of spiritual practice, whatever is appropriate and possible, then we are aware that we are trying to reach God. That awareness will be there. I am aware that of what I am doing. So that awareness will be there at the last moment also. I have heard somebody say, several people say that at the time of death, our whole entire event of all our life will come back like a movie screen. I don't know if it will happen like that or not, but I've heard it from several people. We will know from beginning of this life, end of life, what we have done, good and bad, everything will pass in front of us. That awareness will be there.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay.
Swamiji, I have a question.
Ah.
Not a question, it's really a comment. So what Nachiketa says, similar to what Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya Dev actually has in the prayer, isn't it?
Which prayer?
Sri Chaitanya says,
Nadanam nadanam nasundarim kavitam ma jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhavatad bhaktirahitaki tvayi. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made a prayer called Shikshashtakam, 8 stanzas. This is one of the stanzas. O Jagadisha, Lord of the universe, we should pray to God in this way. Nadhanam kamaya, I don't want wealth. What do you do with money? Enough money to maintain, pay the bills, enough. Najanam kamaya, I don't want people, large family, large disciples, number of disciples. I don't want. Na sundarim kamaya, I don't want a beautiful spouse. Beauty is only short-lived. I want one thing from you. We should ask one thing from God, always. What is that one thing we should ask from God? Mama janmani, in all my births, in this birth, and if you have to take more births in the future births also, Tvayi Ishvare, in you, O Lord, ahetiki bhakti bhavatat, may I have pure devotion, motiveless devotion. Here two means reason or motive. Devotion should not have any motive. We should not be devoted to God because I want something from God. Four kinds of people worship God with different motive. I don't, not that one. Motiveless, pure devotion only for the sake of love. That you grant me. That is exactly same prayer Sri Ramakrishna made to Divine Mother. If you want to know where it is, in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, page 732, 731. No, yeah, 731. English edition. There Sri Ramakrishna said exactly same thing. It's in Bengali, it's in English. So that is the prayer we should ask. We should ask for only pure devotion, not for anything else. Other things are temporary. They come and go. They won't last. So that's what Nachiketa said. I don't want all these things. Old age will come. How can I enjoy chariot and queen and large kingdom when the body is lying down on the bed? Not worth my. Give me knowledge. Give me devotion.
So Swamiji, that means although we say one Atman, one Brahman, same divinity everywhere in everybody, but when we die, we become separated and we come back separate. How does that become separate? That is karmas that leave the body. What does it? What leaves the body?
The subtle body leaves the gross body. Gross body perishes. The subtle body, what happens, subtle body depends upon what we have, how we have led our lives. If you have led our lives doing spiritual practice, subtle body achieves liberation, merges with God. No rebirth. If you have karma requiring rebirth, you will be reborn. Subtle body will be born again in another gross body.
Subtle body, okay. So subtle body carries the karma.
Yeah, if you have karma to be worked out, then we need another birth. Then subtle body will be born again. Subtle body carries the impressions, karma impressions to be worked out in next life. There will be rebirth. It may be better birth. That will come in the same chapter. As soon as this question is done, Arjuna asks what happens when a person dies. Supposing if people like us, we are all trying to do spiritual practice in our own humble way. So when we die, what happens to us? Arjuna asked that question. More interesting question. We'll come to that in verse number 40.
Swami, thank you, Swami. Thank you.
Asked by Arjuna in the next class. We'll come to that one.
Thank you.
Swamiji, I have a question. The 4 types of worship, where can I find the details on that?
I don't know where I saw that one. Pratima Puja, Japastotra, Manasi Puja, Soham Puja, 4 kinds of worship, traditional worship. But Swamiji said superior to all of them is serving the living being, serving God in the living beings. I don't know, I don't remember where I read it. If I come across, I will let you know.
Thank you.
Shall we say the closing prayer?
Yes.
Okay. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may all be happy. May all be free from afflictions. May all realize what is noble and dharmic. May no one be subject to misery. May there be peace and joy in our hearts, Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings, Adi Bhautika Shanti. And may there be peace everywhere in nature, Adi Daivika Shanti. Next class, we will study Arjuna's next question, which is even more interesting. Arjuna asks, when people like us who are doing spiritual practice but have not achieved the goal yet, people like you and me, when such a person dies, what happens? That was Arjuna's question. Yeah, right. So we all have the same question. So we'll study the answer, Bhagwan's answer next time in class. So all of you stay well and stay in touch.
Ram Swamiji.